like silence is no longer an option right now because of what's happening in our political climate. I feel like we need to speak up about these things. So for everyone who wants to talk, you'll have about a 5 minute window. You don't need to fill up all the time, but if you want to, that's okay. And for everyone who wants to speak, just type in the chat something, anything, me, or raise your hand or anything, and we'll go down the list of people who want to talk and share their experiences with any sort of issues in regarding their time at their schools. We're just gonna go down the line of people who type. All right, we'll start with Michael just to set the tone, so people who flood in after know what's going on. So, Maddie, if you can start the countdown.
Should I just start now?
Once the countdown starts, yeah, you can start right now.
Okay. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Breslow. I graduated from CHS in 2016. And I just wanted to come on and share my point of view. And I think it's really important for everyone to understand that that CHS doesn't discriminate in who they shun. Like for me, I'm Mexican and Russian, and I'm a Jew. So growing up, going to schools in Calabasas, and especially at Calabasas High School, I was always made fun of for being a Mexican Jew, that I'm not really Mexican. Like my Mexican friends would say that I'm a gringo, that I'm a white guy, and I was shunned by them. And I was told by my Jewish friends that I'm not really Jewish because I'm Mexican. And there was a couple of times when I was at CHS that I used to wear my yarmulke, my kippah, to school because I was a little bit more religious in high school. I'm much more religious now, but in high school, I used to wear my yarmulke to school, and I remember there were some football players that saw me wearing my yarmulke, and they ripped it off of my head and started throwing it to each other like a frisbee. And this happened a couple of times. Wasn't just one instance. There were many other times when I was on the football team that I would have people telling me, "You're not white, you're Mexican," and then the Mexicans would tell me, "You're not Mexican, you're white." And just a lot of instances like that, and even instances where teachers would say just kind of like backhanded compliments, like, "Oh, it's so great that you're able to get these good grades, and because of your situation." I said, "Well, what situation are you talking about?" And they said, "Oh, well, you're Mexican and you're going to a predominantly white school." And I said, "Why should that have anything to do with me succeeding as a student? Shouldn't you look at me as a student first, instead of just looking at me for the color of my skin?" And there's just so many other instances that I experienced where the administration, the reason why I personally never told the administration my experiences at CHS, because I had always heard of my friends and other people that I knew going to the administration about problems that they faced, and nothing was ever done about it. The administration didn't care. They didn't help out my friends. So I thought to myself, well, if they're not going to help out other people who are facing the same issues as me, what's the point of me speaking out if nothing is going to happen? And I wish I had spoken up back then, kind of going back to what Sammy was saying, silence isn't an option. Silence doesn't help the oppressed, it only helps the oppressor. When we stay silent, we're only, that's part of the problem. We have to stand up for each other. We have to not be silent. We have to, even if we aren't of a certain minority or a certain ethnic or racial group, doesn't mean we can't come together and stand up for each other, I don't know what it means to be Black and American. I never will. That's not going to stop me from standing up with all of my Black friends and all of my Black brothers and sisters, because, when injustice happens in one place, it can happen everywhere else in the world. That's all I got to say.
Thank you for sharing that, because it does go beyond, like you said, CHS discriminates regardless. And just to be frank, it's regardless of, it's almost a white and everyone else thing, because with just you being a Mexican Jew, they didn't find any, they found different aspects of you to poke at and prod at. And that seems like it's the culture at CHS. So Chloe, you have the floor now.
Hi. Of the 2 years I've been at CHS, I've noticed a lot of homophobia on campus. The first instance I noticed this was, I technically wasn't even in school yet. I was in summer school going into freshman year, in freshman seminar, and part of that curriculum was like gender and sexuality. And while we were on that unit, kids throughout the class were making homophobic and transphobic jokes and saying slurs. In the unit, we're supposed to be learning not to do that. And I don't think our teacher noticed, but I remember I didn't want to say like, hey, I find this offensive, because I didn't want to out myself to homophobes. So I just kind of said like, hey, maybe don't do this. You never know, like, if there could be queer kids in this class. And then someone goes, well, there aren't, so it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, even if there aren't, there were, it's still offensive and shouldn't be something that you're doing. And that continued for like the whole class over the summer. And then there have been multiple instances where I have like been talking to a friend about gay rights or something. Now I'm bisexual, and so I'm in a heterosexual relationship, so I kind of benefit from that privilege of coming off as straight to most people who don't like know me personally. There have been times where I've been talking about sexuality with someone, and it's always guys, but I've been called a dyke like in class, and like no one noticed or said anything, which is like terrible, and like no one speaks up on it. I mean, obviously I try to when it's aimed at me or at someone else, but that usually doesn't stop anyone. And I feel like I'm sure teachers notice this because it happens so frequently to so many students, and they don't do anything. They don't interject, and they don't teach students about gender and sexuality and how we should be open and welcoming to different students. And I hear a lot of homophobic slurs like every day on campus. I remember one specifically, I think it was, I can't remember if it was this year or last year. I was sitting with friends in the lower quad. It was this year, and there was this freshman boy skateboarding, and this group of, they were either juniors or seniors, like I think they shout like, do a kickflip, and then like he does it, and then they shout the F slur at him very loudly, and all laugh, and no one spoke up about it. And there are obviously teachers and, you know, and aides in the area, and none of them do anything. And all of these students keep on going with their homophobia and transphobia without any repercussions. I think that's all really I have to say at this moment of specific stories, but I just think it's, something that is so rampant on campus that can't, like, it must be noticed by teachers, but they don't do anything. Thank you. I yield my time.
Jaden, you have the floor now.
Thank you. So I have experienced 2 accounts of racism at this school. I'm Jewish. I'm proud to be Jewish. And I remember in my 9th grade, in my PE class, there was these group of kids that kept shouting out the K word. Like, I don't know if it was directed towards me or not, but I told the PE teacher about it. I said I don't want to like snitch or anything like that. All I'm asking is that please keep an eye out, keep an ear out, and get them when they say it. And he's like, all right, sure, whatever. Doesn't happen. The kids keep saying it, and this time it's directed towards me. And the teacher turns a blind eye. He's right there when they say it, and he turns a blind eye. He's like, it was so, it was just so wrong. And I honestly thought that like I could trust this like teacher with helping me out in this kind of scenario, and it wasn't. The only reason why it stopped is because I took action into my own hands, and I told them, "Hey, you better you stop saying that, all right?" A couple cuss words were thrown here and there at them, and that's the only reason why I got them to stop. But that shows how much this administration doesn't care about the discrimination and the bigotry that happens in our school, and that also shows that they don't care about educating the kids on the discrimination, and as a result, these kids
don't go on the screen.
No, some of them just
use that.
I know, just don't go on the screen.
And other kids
this
are
is
so
live streaming.
uneducated that they don't know the dangers behind.
You want me to try to help? I'm trying to help you. What do you want me to do? This one works.
No, I mean like
these kids the dangers and the consequences behind the words and the symbols that they use.
If I can't move, I don't know what to do.
I just don't go. Be careful for the screen.
I believe it was 10th grade.
What do you mean the screen? You mean the picture?
Yeah, don't get the mouse in the screen.
This 9th grader comes up to me and he says, "Hey, what up, K-word?" And all eyes were on me. All eyes were on me. And I looked at him and I was like so pissed off, but I didn't know if he knew what that word meant. So I said to him, "Do you know what that word means?" Sure enough, no, he did not. So I educated him. I told him about the toxicity of that word, the hurt that is behind it. And you know what? That kid, I see him from time to time. He never said that word ever again. And he apologized. He's like, "I'm really sorry. If I knew about it, I would have never said that." And I think that that's what we have to do at school. We teach about all these horrific events that happen. We teach about the Holocaust. We teach what apartheid is. We teach about slavery. But we never talk about the consequences still to this day that happen because of it. And a lot of the legacy that it leaves behind is from the horrific words that are used. And we need to educate. This school needs to take accountability and educate students on that. And education will separate the students that are clueless from the students that are actually trying to say this that are hurtful. I think that it's awful. I think it's awful that the school is doing little to nothing. It's not even lifting a finger or giving the proper support to people during this time. And I'm honestly furious. And I really wish that, I hope that when Miss Exner becomes the principal, that she can kind of change the course of how the school handles racism like this. Thank you. Ooh, that was a lot.
Thank you, Jaden, for sharing your experiences with that. Layla, if you'd like to speak right now.
Hi, I'm Layla. Some of you might know me from Instagram. I'm the girl that made the video in response to the disgusting video that was put out. I have a lot to say right now, and I don't know if a time limit's gonna be able to take all of it. I'm gonna try to go as fast as I can, but I feel like it all needs to be said. Like, I'm shaking right now, my heart is pounding. I was at the school. I was supposed to graduate with the class of 2017, but in my junior year, I decided to leave and go to online school because I felt that my mental well-being and my education was being compromised because of the color of my skin. I was a performing arts student, so my experiences will be from the perspective of that and those classes. I wrote something down here, and I hope you just take the time to listen. Let's start with the music program at Calabasas. Specifically for me, the choir and a cappella program. I was traumatized by Joshua Barrel's blatant racism, and the abuse followed me for many years. I was used as the token black girl in Vivace, his most advanced choir. In the thick of the music program, I sang about African American strive with a group of mostly white girls in the form of Negro spirituals. The group feigning the black struggle for a performance while literally inflicting one on the only black girl in class was almost laughable. My very first choir performance of the national anthem at a football game, I arrived 5 minutes late. I was instantly attacked by Beryl. He screamed at me, insulted me in front of the class. I was visibly shaking in the middle of the classroom, the only black girl being chastised with all of her white peers flanking her on both sides. After that, no one in the class spoke to me or looked me in the eye the entire night. We then went to the football field to sing the national anthem for a team made up of black boys who were bussed in and housed like cattle to work for a school that showed time and time again that they only valued them for how much they could profit off of them. You can't imagine how triggering that situation must have been to a little black child, knowing our history and not knowing the things that my family had been through before that point. I went home, cried myself to sleep, and did not stop shaking from that point on. Every time I stepped foot in that classroom, every time I opened my mouth to sing or speak, shaking. From then on, I was never late to a performance. I'd bring my choir gown and shoes with me. In the morning, I would stay at school all day and all night, but regardless, every single time we had a performance, he made me relive that moment with condescending comments about me being late to class. About me being late to the class. Our call time is 5:30. To me, Layla, what time is our call time? Say it. What time do you have to be there, Layla? In the most serious tone. Laughing and joking with other students, giving them excuses, letting them do as they please with no repercussions, but endlessly chastising the black kid about being late because, well, black kids are always late, right? My teacher barely spoke to me unless it was about something I did wrong. Beryl would not acknowledge my presence on a daily basis, and therefore neither would the rest of the class. One year, Vivace got invited to go to China, an all expenses paid trip, a privilege for the advanced choir that I was a part of. I was excited because at the time, an opportunity like that would never have been possible for me. Beryl asked to speak privately with 3 students, me, the only Asian girl in the class, and one other girl. He went on to tell us that we weren't invited. The white kids got to go to China. We sat in an empty classroom day after day, learning nothing. When we returned, the 3 students were forced to sit through a slideshow while they reminisced about their fantastic trip. No one missed us. It felt like he refused to teach me. I could be the best singer in the world, and I would never be accepted and valued in that program. When I left the school altogether, I had to hear from a friend who was in a different choir than mine that he ranted to me to his classes behind my back long after I was gone. These are only some of the instances that hurt me, but if you knew me back then, you know I was a quiet, good kid who never caused any trouble. Not that any of that matters. No child, well behaved or not, deserves that. Now for the theater program. Something very interesting happened when I posted my video on Instagram this past Tuesday. In that video, I mentioned a handful of programs and groups within Calabasas, but I didn't call the theater program out specifically for their racism. That was done for me in the comment section. Students and alumni, all different ages, all different races, told their stories of being ignored, typecast, stereotyped, outcast, and hindered in their theater education. Every day, due to the color of their skin. It is a program not unlike the music program and many others within the school that uses the cover of auditions and performing arts skill to blatantly discriminate against students who are different. Because of this disguise, I and other students of color were not able to articulate this without the accusation of being jealous or bitter. Today, as a working professional, I can tell you that is BS. My very first role in the CHS theater program was a monkey. My theater education was most important to me, as that would be the main source of income post-high school. I watched my white peers consistently receive opportunities and grow from them while I was ignored. I watched Bill Garrett choose fall and spring shows with white students clearly already in mind for the roles way before the auditions. While I was there, almost none of the shows chosen had the opportunity for any students of color to play leads. and it was incredibly naive to believe they'd be cast Hamilton style. In school's history, almost all of the lead roles filled by black students were stereotypes, roles that had to be black. And even then, the black performer's counterpart would be a white person. In my final year, Garrett announced that they'd be doing Anne Frank in the Addams Family. You could audibly hear every student of color's heart drop. I confronted him about it, asked him if I should even bother auditioning for Anne Frank or just do a show elsewhere to further my education. He gave me the I don't see color speech. No people of color were cast in that show, and if they were kids who could pass as white. He then conveniently announced that there would be a student production of Antigone happening at the same time. Not in the beautiful black box theater we had, but in the old abandoned auditorium on campus that the cheer team now uses as a practice space. He put all the leftover people of color that could not possibly be in Anne Frank in a dusty theater to do a show that was spearheaded by the librarian, not a theater teacher. I volunteered throughout my time in that theater. I helped others. I worked twice as hard to get not even half as much. But as I said before, when leadership ignores you, so does the rest of the class. The show was boycotted by most students because one popular white student said he no longer wanted to be a part of it. We had no support, no training, and I had the humiliating honor of playing the lead of a show that was set up to fail. While my white peers did an all-white show, with a stunning set and costumes, and support from the entire community, separate and unequal. After I left, whenever I'd returned to support my white friends in their shows, I was met with jokes about how the program is no longer diverse because their token black has left the school. To administration directly, if you're hearing this. On campus in general, I've heard the N-word, and I've been asked to twerk for people. My sister and her black friends were treated horrendously on the cheer team by the cheer coach. To this day, I'm getting direct messages and comments from people I've never met telling their stories, about 50 so far. Want to hear the most shocking? Remember the many times you told a black child who came into your office to keep it quiet when someone told them that they said the N-word and they're in your classrooms? Because I'm getting all kinds of messages about that. At this point, it's not about the racist video anymore. It's about the racist systems you put in place at your school. It's about the hush-hush attitude you live by and encourage, which prevents people of color from receiving help. They don't receive help from you or your peers or their peers because you encourage bystander non-intervention, because you encourage a discriminatory performing arts program, because you treat your black boys on the football team like a commodity, because you refuse to publicly say you stand with them, even when the world is on fire, even when you are accused of being the problem. If Sesame Street and Elmo and Nickelodeon can tell me that Black Lives Matter, you can too. You have no excuse. Listen to your black kids, advocate for them, do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Layla, for talking and sharing those experiences, because just to piggyback off of what you're saying, there were some names that were said that for some of you might be difficult to hear, and it might be hard to hear that, oh, someone who I thought was such a role model could make these different comments and accusations and do these different types of things. But we need to hold these systems accountable, regardless of who it is, regardless of how you feel about them. We need to listen to the people who are speaking. We need to listen. We see what's happening. 50 people talked to her, and there have been a multitude of people that have talked to me as well about certain people that I was shocked to hear about. But that shock needs to be absolved, and it needs to be replaced with the accountability that you need to hold them to. AJ, you have the floor now.
Thank you. Well, I have like two stories. So this year during math class, I asked to go to the restroom, and as I'm going, I see this really tall kid Well, just for starters, I came out as bisexual in 8th grade. It was really hard. I faced a lot of bullying in middle school. Was hoping that I wasn't going to get the same bullying in high school. And so as I'm walking to the bathroom, I hear, "Yo, what's up, Gay J Pringle?" And I'm like, who the hell said that? And then I see who it is. It's this tall kid named, I honestly don't even remember the kid's name. But I was like trying to make it, like, play it off as a joke, but obviously I was visibly uncomfortable. And as I'm walking into the bathroom, I hear, "Yo, what are your thoughts on cock?" As in penis. And I was very, very uncomfortable. And I didn't even end up using the restroom because I like went in and I was like, yeah, I don't even feel safe right now. And I am walking out and I hear the F slur muttered under the kid's breath, and so I go back to class and I go up to a couple of my friends and I'm like, I have a psychotic story for you guys that you guys aren't gonna believe just happened. And they heard it, and it was a very uncomfortable experience for everyone. And so my next story, I'm Jewish, and a kid dropped a quarter. I picked it up because, wow, that's cool. And this kid goes, that kid's a kike, at the top of his lungs in front of a large group of people. And I didn't realize that he was talking about me until my friend came up to me and said, "Yo, did you hear what that kid said?" And I was like, "Yeah, what was it about?" And he goes, "It's about you picking up the quarter." And I was very uncomfortable with that. And so the reason why I felt the need to share these experiences today is because the other day I was watching this movie called Black Klansman from Spike Lee, and there was a scene in it where they had Stokely Carmichael, who was a political advocate, African-American political advocate, who then was named Kwame Ture. And he had a quote in his speech called, "We ain't going," in his speech, where he goes, "If not now, when? And if not you, who?" And it's a group of people saying, "Yes, who, we agree." And so that's why I felt like I needed to speak my mind, because if not now, when all this is happening, when will this get resolved? And if not us, then who is going to be the one to speak their mind? And with that, I yield my time. Thank you, Sammy Mady, for setting this all up. And yeah.
Thank you, AJ. Next we have Claire.
Hi. So, I have a couple things that I've just noticed around the school from my 3 years here. So one of the first ones is that I'm kind of like people come to me when they have something that's happened, because I'm just kind of known by a couple of people to be someone who stands up usually, because also I am white and I am cis. That's usually the school staff will listen to me more. So just one experience is freshman year. I have a friend who's trans, and he came up to me. He was like crying, having a panic attack, all this shit. And he told me that this group of boys, large group of white boys, called him the TR slur. So I confronted these boys. I told them, that's not right. What you're doing is harming people. You are like physically harming this child by saying that. And they laugh at me. So I get angry. I get very angry. I start yelling and screaming at them. And they go to the principal and get me in trouble for standing up for a friend. And it's disgusting, because I come in there too later and I tell the principal, Miss Foss, like, you don't know what these boys were doing. Like, they're physically hurting someone by saying these words. I'm on a Zoom call. And so it's just disgusting. I got in trouble for that. And I've also seen it happen. I'm on the track team, and we share the field with the soccer team. And some of the things that I've seen these soccer people say, either under their breath or directly to my black friends who are on the track team with me, is disgusting.
Like, what did they say?
Like, I want you guys to know that these people group together and they think it's a joke, what they're saying. They think it's funny. They laugh at it. Yeah, I agree. Like, the soccer team, that's just the only thing that I've seen because I'm right there doing track. And it's horrendous. Like, I get so angry anytime I even think of it. They go out there and they say the N slur to these people. And all they're doing is doing what they can, you know? And, like, it's just horrendous. Also, I've seen in our school how the administration handles mental health is disgusting. Recently I spent some time in the mental hospital just because of how bad my mental health got due to treatment from school and at home. So I had to tell the teachers and principal when I got back from the hospital what I was there for. They would not let me remain anonymous about what had happened to me. They made me tell them that I had stayed in the mental hospital. And they told all of my teachers, even the ones that I did not want told about this situation. And after that, I have one teacher who would make suicide jokes at me. And it's horrendous. Like, this teacher, I would be in this class, and he would be saying this shit to me. And, you know, I can't reply because this man is in charge of my grade. And this man is his first year teaching. He's a new teacher. And he's just saying this shit, like making suicide jokes. And I've told the school principal, I've told them all about this, and they just say, oh, he's a new teacher, he doesn't know what's up yet. It's the excuses that they use for people using the TR slur, for people who are just saying the N-word, for people who are making suicide jokes to a survivor. It's disgusting. So, I'll yield my time. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Claire. Next, we have Dylan. Dylan, you're up.
Hi. Oh, wait, can I just start? No. So I want to talk about all of the experiences I've had for a very long time, not just at CHS, even before it in middle school at AC Stell. So I came out to like my family at the end of 7th grade, so like 2017, I think. But I knew about what it would be like before that because I'd heard a lot of things. But I want to get into like what I've experienced at Calabasas High first, because it still happens. Even like there was the big one that happened recently. It was a few months ago, maybe like October, November, or some around that time. I was in English, and this group of like 4 or 5 kids next to me, and I don't want to name names, but they said some really, really homophobic things that were on a different level that I've never heard at school before, and it was insane to me. Some of them were making jokes about how they would kill gay people for like ice cream or something, and it just went on for like an hour, and I was looking around and I wondered how the teacher did not hear it. But it was so like violent in the way that they talked, and I don't remember the like exact of anything, the whole conversation, but it was just, it lasted way too long, and it really hurt me, and I don't know, but that's one example. Another example is like in history, there's this group of kids that used to sit next to me. Obviously not anymore because we don't go to physical school, but it was just like every day F slur was part of their normal conversation and how much they hate F slurs. It happened way too much. But with all of this, with all of the experiences I've had, because things like this happened in middle school too, I've started to realize like how much privilege these kids don't realize that they have, and how they think it's funny when it's really not. In 8th grade, I started this group. I wanted to start like a GSA or whatever at that middle school, and it was like the last few weeks of school, so it was kind of too late, but we did it anyway. And the counselors did this presentation for like all the classes about how to treat gay and trans people correctly, and how to be just like an ally. But throughout, I watched that happen. I watched that the counselors do their presentation, and people laughed throughout the whole thing. And it's things like that that I've noticed that kids don't take it seriously when you tell them what they're saying is wrong. And I don't know how to get them to take it seriously, but it just doesn't happen. Because in 7th grade, before I came out, I saw the inner workings of it. I had a friend group that was very, very homophobic and sort of convinced me to be internally homophobic, just like so that I can impress them. But yeah, I've hidden certain parts about me and my personality at school just because I know that in some way to a lot of people there it's not what they want to see, and I'll get judged for it for sure. I was gonna say something else, but I forgot. I think that's it. That's all I have. But it's a huge problem, and I don't know how to solve it. But it's something that needs to be talked about more for sure at our school.
Yeah, thank you. Next, Caitlin. Caitlin, you have the floor now.
Hi. So I'm in the AME program along with a few other people on this call. So that's kind of given me some sort of like protection, because it's pretty much all based around art. The people in AME are very open to just they're not very racist or homophobic, is what I'm trying to say. But 2 kids in our class, we had a situation this year where they would call me and some other kids slurs, and we took it to administration because we weren't comfortable being in a class with them. And the vice principal, Mr. Frail, we had to have a circle with him where we talked about the whole situation, and the whole class got involved. We had a big circle one day, and then we had to continue it privately in a private meeting room with these 2 kids. And basically what happened in there was Mr. Frail brought in another girl who wasn't part of the situation to monitor and kind of be a Switzerland. So she was basically just taking their side in our eyes, because like if you're gonna stay silent, you're on their side. And she would just sit there and basically back them up. And Mr. Friel basically just made us apologize for saying some things on a group chat that were sort of hostile after they had been calling us slurs. And we were the ones who had to apologize. And he didn't, when they had to apologize too, but he didn't even push them to make it seem like they meant it or anything like that. We stayed in there for about an hour just because I personally had a problem with apologizing to these kids because I didn't feel like I had to. but Mr. Friel basically forced us to. And if we wanted to leave that room, we had to apologize to them. And that's basically the biggest thing that's happened, which was disgusting. And I'm in a few regular classes too. Like my Spanish class is all filled with freshmen. There's like 3 sophomores, and there's constantly freshman boys, freshman white boys throwing around the S slur, people throwing around the R slurs. Just like, it's disgusting what goes on. And that's all I have to say. So.
Thank you, Caitlin. Avery, you're next.
Thank you. All right. So, first of all, thank you, Sammy, for setting this up. I'm very, very glad that we have this platform. But one thing that I want to say is that with everything that is coming out about Calabasas, it is incredibly hard for me to accept that I attend a school that has zero appreciation for diversity. But one of like the worst things for me to accept is the nonchalant and uncaring response by the administration after everything that has recently come out. It's hard for me to see the emails from a detached voice of Ms. Foss that will literally have zero impact or effect on the student body. And, you know, this week, I wish for nothing more than to like go out and protest for all the people that are abused at our school. But due to the coronavirus, I wasn't able to. And I'm just like so incredibly glad that we now have this platform to discuss change and to discuss the stories of people that attend Calabasas and have been through the ringer. So I just kind of wanted to discuss today things that we can possibly do to aid the situation or try and push Calabasas in the right direction, because I do think that it's important to talk about change. I think that what needs to happen is a sort of re-education, because as we can see from all the stories that you guys have so bravely shared, the student body, a large portion of the student body is lacking education in regards to diversity and respect. And I think that action needs to be taken in regards to that. I think that and Ms. Foss said in her email that only the faculty is getting workshops. And I think that that is absurd. I think that the problem is definitely the faculty, but I also think that the problem stems from kids who are not educated. And I think that workshops or some sort of assemblies, even though we don't know how much that's going to change things, but I think that that's at least an action that we can take. And I would encourage, I know what I'm going to do soon is I'm going to email Dr. Stepanowski and email him, because he said, I'm shocked about what's going on at the school. And it's like, well, you shouldn't be shocked, because if you attended this school, you would see it for yourself. So I'm going to email Dr. Stepanowski, and I would like suggest and highly emphasize each of you to do that as well, to speak out and speak about what you can do, because now is the time for change and to take action. So basically that's all I wanted to say. And thank you for everyone who's sharing your stories. It's really, really important to draw awareness.
Thank you, Avery. And I think once this is all done, we should, like she's doing, make a true push to get something done around here. Because with everyone who's spoken's permission, I'm going to share this further with Exner, with Stepanowski, and everyone in the administration who can actually evoke change. And I'm going to continue to push this and continue to allow our voices to be heard, because judging from all of these stories, it's not being heard right now. And in most cases, they're being ignored. So I thank you, Avery, for making that push to change something. And with that, Dylan,
You now have the floor to speak.
Hi. So, you meant me, Dylan, right? Because there's probably like other Dylans left.
Yes.
Okay. Like Caitlin said, like I'm very like privileged to be part of the AME program because everyone's super open and like amazing. But like I already told Sammy and like the few others about this, like and like for me, I don't really know if it's offensive. I feel like it is. I feel like it is, but I'm not really sure. But basically, like I was in Miss Ferretti's class and we were reading a book, and it was like To Kill a Mockingbird or something. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so scared. Like so many people on here, but like so the N word was written in the book multiple times, and she read it like fully said it, and I remember like everyone was looking at around and looking at each other, and like we were all like, "What? Like that's kind of weird." And then later, like recently, I remember like she was like, "Oh, it's okay to say it if you're reading it in a book." But we all were like, kind of like, "Are you sure? Like, how are you to say like what's right and what's wrong? Like it's the N word." And then also, like, because I'm part of the AME program, I haven't really experienced too much homophobia, but one time, like, there have been, actually, it was more than one time, but like, where, like, the term, like, gay or lesbian was used for, like, a bad thing. And, like, I remember, like, I'm not gonna say any names, but, like, one time, like, this girl, like, these two girls were like hugging, but it was like a deep hug. It was sweet. They were close friends, and then like someone called them lesbian, and then they were like, "No, like why would I be lesbian? I'm just hugging my friend." And then she had to like defend herself, and like just like gay and lesbian were used as like a bad thing. If that makes sense. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Dylan. And next we have Ewan, who would like to speak on some things. Ewan, you have the floor.
Hi. So these were comparative to like some of the other things that I've heard today are relatively minor, but I still thought there's something that you should talk about because again, silence is not really a valid option if you want to do something about it. I am mixed. I am white, but my mom's side is Asian. And I've had a few instances where at first I just thought like, that's weird. And then in retrospect, I'm like, no, that's racism. One example, there's this one kid who at first I thought it was just like, oh, haha, a joke that he does because he consistently called my friend Mark and my friend Mark also mixed Chinese. He would always call Mark and I just some variation of Asian food every time. I thought it was a minor thing at first, but then it kind of started to get really annoying. Another instance, I take Chinese just as a foreign language class. And this was something less that I experienced, but just a pattern that I've seen a lot. Anytime you tell someone or anytime someone on campus, I'd mention like, oh, I'm in Chinese class. If I had $1 for every time I'd say that and someone would be like, oh, ching chong ting tong. And again, it seems like a minor thing, but if you're saying that, it may seem like a joke to you, but again, that's someone's culture, that's someone's language, and you're making fun of it purely because of the fact it's different. The last thing, I didn't really think about this until a few minutes ago. I sometimes forget that people use gay as an insult legitimately because I have a lot of friends who are gay, and I rarely hear it used as an insult within my friend group. But like there was this one instance where I posted a joke about AP Bio on my Snapchat story, and this guy messages me and he's like, "You sound so fucking gay. It's not even funny." And I was really caught off guard. it took a second to register, like, oh wait, they're really trying to hurt me here. It wasn't hurtful, but it just reminded me that, like, yeah, people will actively try to insult you by calling you gay or calling you various amount of slurs or various things like that. I know they're comparatively minor things, like in relative to some of the other things here, but every little bit counts. And I think if I'm silent about this, then that area isn't going to be covered. And I think, yeah, if you're quiet, you're letting it happen. If you're letting it happen, it's going to keep happening. So thank you. I started my time.
Thank you, Ewan. Even the minor things are one of the hardest things to communicate and prove, what with the existence of microaggressions and how things feel in a certain situation. It really is difficult to articulate the feeling that you get from a certain situation and how to pinpoint that to racism or sexism or homophobia. So I appreciate you even sharing that, regardless of the impact. I appreciate that. Next we have Noah Wise.
Hi everyone, Sammy, I wanted to thank you for setting this up. I think this platform is really important to everyone. I'm sorry that you've experienced this at CHS. I'm speechless. I'm not surprised this is happening. I've seen it. I've been a part of the theater program. I've been a part of the music program. There's so much racism that has gone on campus, and it really bothers me, especially seeing some popular kids who think that they're rappers and they aren't afraid to say the N-word, which completely boggles me. I think one thing in this whole situation has kind of brought it back to my mind. I actually saw a post yesterday calling out admin for being anti-Semitic. I remember my freshman year, it was like March 2017. Some kids took their own feces and made a swastika out of it in the boys' bathroom, and that was horrible. I know there was a swastika graffitied on the senior trail a couple of years ago, and there's a past history of a lot of anti-Semitic events that have happened at CHS, and I know I'm not the only one who's brought this up to administration. I feel like they kind of just ignore the issue, and that really bothers me. And I've heard some teachers, I'm not going to say who, but say anti-Semitic stuff and think that they can make Jewish jokes. I had a teacher say to a classmate, "What do you Jews do for Thanksgiving?" And I thought that was awful. And, you know, I'm a senior, and I'm sad and also happy to be leaving. Like, I'm happy to be leaving so I'd be done with the toxic people and the struggles with administration and some staff members that I had in trying to advocate for environmental issues on campus. But I'm glad that this is provoking change, and I know that you guys will make a difference at Calabasas High School. I think what's happening is important, and I'm excited to see the changes being made. I hope that the district and the school really take notice of what we as students are saying. I know that ASB is on your side and really cares and really wants to know what they can do. I think part of this is, you know, I just think it's a really tough situation, and I'm excited for the change that's going to come to CHS. I don't want to say that's needed, to happen in the incident, but I think it's provoking. I think it provoked. I think this is making people come forward, and I hope that admin now really does take action. I know there's 2 new assistant principals next year and a new principal, even though she's been at the school. So thank you again for sharing your stories. I'm sorry for you. I feel for you. And thank you again, Sammy, for setting this up.
Thank you, Noah. Next we have Sophia.
Hi. Yeah, thank you again, Sammy, for letting us all be a part of this. So for my English class this year, there wasn't enough space in any of the English classes. So they created a new one with this teacher who I had never really heard about. I think she'd just been like one of those 0 period teachers. And on the first day that we're there, she points out all the people of color in the class and goes, by the way, I've gotten stuff in the past that I'm a racist. I just want to let you know I have 2 black cousins. Therefore, I'm not a racist. And it all just kind of like, it just kind of made us uncomfy. And this was the first day that we had met her, just completely just coming out saying that she wasn't a racist because she had 2 black cousins. And so that was just one instance. And just over the course of that week, she would constantly make racist comments to the people of color in the room. And me and a lot of my friends became really uncomfortable. And I know many people went to the counselors and they did absolutely nothing. Flash forward to about a month ago when we were still in school, we started reading the book Kindred. And it has a lot of racial slurs because it's about slavery in the antebellum South. And it says it for a reason, to show how horrible it was during that time period. So when we would have to read out loud, she would say, oh, it's okay. It's okay to read it because it's in the book. And she would almost be like forcing us to say it. Or she'd be like, well, if you're not comfortable with saying it, I guess that's okay. But she just tried to make it so comfortable to say that word. And it was just so shocking to see that happen. And so I went to my counselors because everyone was just so obviously like uncomfortable. That's like the only word I can like find to describe it. But I went to my counselors, I think 3 times, and they did absolutely nothing. I think the 3rd and final time, my counselor was like, well, you can't switch out. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I was like, this isn't about me. This is about my teacher making everyone uncomfortable and singling out the colored people in my class for saying the N-word. And it was just a really, really weird experience. And since then, she hasn't made that many racist comments, but it's just a part of the class now where we're like, okay, what is this teacher going to say now to like, make people feel uncomfortable or single out the colored people in the class or, try and get us to say something that like is so derogatory and has such a historical background that like it's just so weird to say, I don't know. I'm having trouble like coming up with stuff to say, but yeah, thank you. I think that's it.
I can go next. I graduated in 2019 and I was in ASB for 2 years. I'm Black, by the way. Sorry if you're hearing like text tones in the background or like any other sounds. But I was in ASB for 2 years and my position was clubs and multicultural. So I just like was in charge of all the clubs on campus and I planned events for like, different months like Hispanic Heritage Month or Black History Month, just like events like that. And I had like a lot of different experiences in ASB that, I mean, at the time, I didn't really think anything of them. Then like, like the advisors were just kind of like mean to me or like pick on me for no reason. But I think like since I've graduated, I've realized that they weren't necessarily isolated incidents and the things that happened to me there like are happening to me in like college groups or like stuff like that. So I would say like one thing that I want to kind of start off with is someone that was in ASB who was on the board the year that I got in told me that the only reason that I got into ASB was because I was Black. And that was kind of hard to hear because I had thought like I had a good interview, or like, I don't know, I had just thought that, you know, I was deserving of the position I had because I did work really hard on like, you know, everything for the interview. So that person at the time was my friend. So I kind of was thinking, you know, I didn't necessarily know what to think. I didn't really tell anyone for a few months. And like, you know, it's been like a year and a half or almost 2 years since that happened. And I barely told, I wouldn't even say I've told up to 10 people because it's just like, you know, it's hard to hear, I think. And then also having to do with the ASB advisors, especially my junior year, they would always like pick on me for things. Like I wouldn't do anything and they would just get like angry at me for no reason. Or I remember there was a lunchtime activity and I had a doctor's appointment and I had told one of the advisors before, I'm like, oh, I have a doctor's appointment. You know, I can't come to the event. It was like a lunchtime activity, like, you know, and he basically started screaming at me in front of the whole class and was like, you're not dedicated to ASB and like all this different stuff, just like screaming at me. And it just made me feel very uncomfortable because it was one of the many, many times, and I've forgotten a lot of them because they were just very traumatic experiences, but it was one of the many times that I had been screamed at for things that are very minimal, or if I had to miss an event because, you know, at the time I couldn't drive and it was hard for me to get around, I would have to like Uber everywhere. If I had to miss an event, I would get like yelled at, or if I did something like slightly wrong, I would just get screamed at for no reason. So, you know, my mother had to end up calling the school to kind of talk to the advisors because I would just like break down in tears because of just like the verbal abuse that I faced being an ASB. Like just for a position that I was really passionate about, I thought it was very important to expose students to other cultures because, you know, as we can all, you know, we all know that students at Calabasas are very ignorant. I mean, whether it's, you know, their fault or, you know, the school's fault for not exposing them to things, a lot of students are super ignorant. Yeah, so then my mother had to end up calling one of the advisors and she was kind of like, why do you treat my daughter who's in ASB so differently from all the other students? Because I was the only Black person in ASB, you know, and I was treated terribly for no reason. And he was basically like, that wasn't the intention, yada, 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 just kind of like, you know, trying to cover up what he had done. And after that, he was really nice to me when I was in ASB my senior year, but it was like overly, like he didn't want to do anything to kind of like make me feel as though I was being picked out. Another thing that happened was my senior year. Basically, we had an event for Persian New Year. I had put a lot of time into it. I was meeting with one of my teachers who was Persian, and she was helping me kind of like get things together for the event. And basically after the event, she sent an email to the ASB advisors kind of like thanking me. Like she only mentioned my name, even though I was in a commissionership with 2 other people. She only mentioned my name and said that she was so proud of me and it was a wonderful event, like all this stuff. And she sent it to me and the ASB advisors. And basically what happened is when me and my commissioners were recapping the Persian New Year event, like one of the advisors read the email, and instead of like just saying my name because it was like, or not reading it at all because, you know, he didn't, or the email didn't mention other people, he read the email saying like, he mentioned all of our names, but he said, yeah, it was about like Aneta, and then, you know, she didn't actually put these other 2 names in there, but I'm going to say them. So that kind of thing. And it was super embarrassing because it was in front of the whole class, and it was by no fault of my own that, you know, I didn't really have help with that event. Like, it was not my fault that I did it by myself or that I put so much effort into it, but yet I was getting blamed. I was getting blamed for, you know, that. And then I would say another thing that also happened is I was president of the Black Student Union when I was at Calabasas, and when it was Black History Month, I was recapping the different events that, you know, we had done in ASB and kind of just getting input from everyone. And one thing that I mentioned was that for Black History Month, I had asked the people in charge of the announcements if they could only play Black artists. And the response I got was, okay, maybe, like, we'll see, you know. And when it was the end of the month and I was talking to, you know, the club, I kind of said to them, I was like, yeah, I did ask, and, you know, no one really got back to me, whatever. And I invited them. I was like, please come to the Student Senate meeting. We're recapping Black History Month. Let us know what happened. Or tell, you know, ASB what happened, not just me, so everyone knows. And during the meeting, someone asked, they're like, why didn't you only play Black artists during Black History Month. And my exact words were something along the lines of, I did ask, but I was basically told no, like something like that. And it just blew up into this huge thing for no reason, where that same day in ASB, one of the ASB advisors, who was just like, would always call me out, was very passive aggressive for no reason, called me out and basically said that we shouldn't talk badly about ASB members outside of the class. Like, if we have issues with people in ASB, we should talk within each other. And the example he used was, if I was in a meeting with Miss Foss and I didn't like something she said, I wouldn't tell all of you guys, I would tell her. And basically just making me out to be a victim, and like an evil person, like that I did something so evil. I was talking bad about ASB when I didn't say anything other than I asked and I was told no, which was the truth. It wasn't slander. It was the truth. And one of the ASB students was sitting in her chair, looking around the room, snapping, saying it was so true, when in fact she wasn't even there when I had made the statement. She had come in after I had said that, and her friends had told her stuff that was not true about me, apparently saying that I asked her specifically, or I asked all the people in her commissionership and no one answered me. When I didn't mention the commissionership and I didn't mention names, I just answered a question that someone had asked me. And I just really noticed, like, there were so many events in ASB that happened to me that, where maybe I would have an idea and my commissioners would be like, I don't like that idea, and then 2 seconds later they'd come up with the exact same thing I had just said, where people would steal my ideas, or I wouldn't get any help or anything, or there was literally nothing I could do and be applauded. Like, everything I did was wrong. Even if I had planned a whole event by myself, people, instead of like saying, oh, you did a good job, it was like, you did this, and this wrong. So it was very difficult for me being in ASB, being the only Black person in it, because I tried really hard to do things, and no one wanted to, and I wasn't looking for praise. I wasn't looking for people to appreciate me, but it's like, I did this. You can't even recognize I did something. And I think, like, another thing that even happened was, for Black History Month, I had gone to the, one of the assistant principals, and I had basically said, I want to do all these different events, and this was last year. And she had basically told me that, isn't it unfair that you want to use ASB money to plan events for your club, the Black Student Union, when in fact it was my job in ASB to plan events that, were of cultural significance. So Black History Month, that was something that was literally my job to do. And she was basically just saying that, like, I was only wanting to do this to use ASB money to plan something for me. But it's like, celebrating Black History Month and celebrating all these months aren't only beneficial for me. It's beneficial for the school as a whole, because now we can see the school has so many issues with homophobia, with sexism, transphobia, racism, anti-Blackness, anti-Semitism. There are so many issues, and by ignoring students, like, when they're saying things and not trying to listen to them and wanting to just like play a victim or be like, ooh, you're doing this bad or that bad, like, they're causing a lot of problems for themselves that could have been avoided. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say.
Because I don't think people are, and I appreciate you saying this, because I don't think a lot of people necessarily understand being the one, and this goes for all marginalized people, but specifically being the one Black person in a white dominated area. It is so difficult to, I've heard this a lot, but we have to work 10 times harder, whereas our counterparts can do the absolute bare minimum and then still get the recognition. Now, as she said, none of us are looking for any overt praise or you are so great for doing what you're doing. But when we have to break our backs to get to that same level, but not even the same level, we have to be on a otherworldly standard, whereas our white peers can be on the ground floor. They can be on the ground floor. My experiences with theater have been so absolutely difficult, because I'm not very well versed in all the ins and outs of everything. I've only done 3 shows my entire life, and they've all been at Calabasas High School, but I am expected to know things that I couldn't possibly know the types of things that are being said, or referred to, and then when I express my confusion, I'm held to this vilified standard, and you need to step it up. You need to step. Someone even told me, and I'm gonna respect and not name any names, but you need to step up your game. You need to really respect everything that's going on, and just be better. When I work my ass off and I do so much and I go above and beyond, and someone will mosey in and sometimes steal some of the things that I've said, or some jokes that I've said, and steal them and frame them as their own, and they will get 10 times the amount of recognition that I got, and 10 times 1 is 10. So, you know. Next we have Layla C. You have the floor now.
Sorry. Can you guys hear me? Or
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. So like the same thing with Mrs. Heredia. She was just awful, like reading the N-word continuously on multiple occasions from To Kill a Mockingbird. And it was so obviously clear, like everyone in the room was uncomfortable. So that's like, I mean, that's just that. Like I didn't have the like courage to report it at the time, but I feel like, yeah, she's awful. Like, but, and then I have another story with Mrs. Heredia. We already heard the like her saying the N-word, so I'm not gonna like repeat the story, but so I have 2 friends that were in that class with me. It was my 2 friends. Well, I don't know if they want me to tell their names, but they're both African American, and they're both girls, and they don't look alike at all, and but they're both African American. So Mrs. Heredia looks at one of them and she says the wrong name. She says the name of the other African American girl in class, and she won't stop like pressing. She keeps like saying her name, saying the name of the other girl, and then finally the girl she's talking to is like, that's not my name. And then she was like, all of a sudden stunned, she was like, oh, I'm so sorry, like it was, I didn't drink enough coffee, I didn't get enough sleep, I didn't do this or that, like. And I'd like to note this was well into the school year. It was probably like December, and she had known everybody else's name by that point. And she just wasn't able to admit her own racism in that moment. And it was just such like a wow moment to like watch. And that has happened like with my other friends, my 2 Asian friends, that aren't even in the same period. Again, they don't look alike at all. But Mrs. Jobs had, like, not once, but continuously called them by the wrong name. And that's just, like, unacceptable to me. Like, you know everybody else's name by that point, and you're mixing up people because of their race that don't look similar and aren't in the same period. I don't know. But, and like just to note, like with racial slurs, every single one of my African American friends has an experience with students calling them the N-word. Every single one of my African American friends. And the most like, I guess, like stunning one was like that I saw was when my friend was like going through a hall, and this white, and she's African American, and I was with her, and this white boy comes up to her. He's like, "What's up, ma?" And then he says it with an A. And she's like, "What did you just say to me?" And then he's like, "What's up, my?" And then he says it with an R the second time. And he was blocking the hall, so she couldn't like get through. Or he was like blocking her way through, basically. And then she kind of like just like did this, like she kind of scared him or tried to scare him, and then he like recoiled and like he backed away. But it was just, so those are the most notable things, but there are definitely other things that I've heard from my friends. So that's it.
Thank you, Layla. Next, we have Dylan Lee. Dylan Lee.
Hi, sorry, let me just... Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Dylan Lee. Apologies if I'm looking at different places. I'm also running the stream, which thank you for everyone who's viewing on YouTube right now. And I also like to thank Sammy, for giving us this space to talk, because I personally don't really feel like I've talked to other people about it, but most of my responses have been from people that I thought were my friends that have just said, "Why do you care? You're a straight white male. This shouldn't bother you at all. You should feel lucky." I don't give two shits about myself. I don't feel lucky. The fact that I'm living in a world where my friends are treated like trash, where racist things are gone without notice, like they're not even there. It's just disgusting to me, personally. I went in the bathroom one day, and I went to sit down. It was right before, like, a couple days before, because our bathrooms are trash. It was right before they were going to fix them up, and I closed the door, and just a plethora of racial and homophobic slurs are just plastered right on the door. The big one that just says, and I don't even get it, it just says, "Black people, am I right?" ? That's such a weird comment, and in multiple stuff. I was in a call in my theater class, and a professional was talking about something, and Zoom has not been figured out yet at that point in time, and we were roughly early into it, and someone joins the call completely unnoticed. I completely forgot his name too, but he comes in, and he does like a couple of weird things. He like says "shut up" to people, and like blasts music into the screen and just leaves. And they enter in one last time, and they just yell, "I hate gays, I hate gays, I hate gays," and leaves. Which everyone just kind of, carried on like it was nothing. They said something about it, and they just carried on. And this just goes back to, using gay as an insult. I never really got why people still do that. It's honestly the entire thing that I can just define as sick. I could go on and on about stories that disgust me about my friends being, stereotyped and judged based on the way that they look or act. And I'm going to spend this last few minutes in saying something in the Zoom chat that someone did not get to personally say, for all the people who are watching on YouTube and everyone else who will continue to watch this later. This is from Kennedy Waite. She said that she had to leave, but she thanks all of you for sharing your stories. They will not go unheard. She will be emailing the CHS counselor. She's been attending at high school, Mr. Rivas, someone that she is still in contact with and who she trusts very much. She's going to make sure that he sees the YouTube live, as well as the compiled testimonials, written included, and strongly urges him to share this with the rest of the admin and change the way they handle homophobia, racism, and sexism on campus and in the community. She wants to remind you that you are all so incredibly worthy, whether you are white, black, Hispanic, straight, bi, or queer. Your voices deserve to be heard, and you deserve to be respected as human being that you are. Do not let anything stop you from changing the school system for the betterment of the present and future CHS students. I strongly urge you all to create a formal pushback to the school. Be strong. Silence is not an option. Thank you, Sammy, for putting this together. Kennedy Waite, CHS 19. That is all I'd like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dylan. And Kennedy and a few other CHS alumni emailed me some experiences that they've had with racism in their years at the school. So I'm going to start with Kennedy's email. She says, Here are a few examples of racism I've compiled between my brothers and I. These are events that have occurred to all of us, and she was changing some of the wording to remain anonymous. So, number one, some students telling her that she's light-skinned, so she's not actually black. Students saying the N-word in front of black students, and then immediately apologizing with, I'm sorry, I should not have done that, which you can guess is pretty disingenuous. At the middle school, actually, which is a big proprietor of racism as well, AC still has a huge problem with racism at that school. Middle school students saying the N-word repeatedly to a fellow black student. This was incessantly, all the time, not just once. Was reported to the school, but no consequences followed. The parents of the student were also racist. And two other CHS alumni, Kenya and, let's see, and I sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but it's ADE. Our names are, say it again?
Ade.
Okay. Our names are Kenya and Ade. We graduated from Calabasas High School last spring, and we're on the board of the former BSU. In light of the current climate of our country, it has become an opportunity for us to all reflect on racial equity, especially in a school environment. First, we would like to express how proud we are that these conversations are happening today and that the administration is willing to listen. While we attended CHS, neither of us personally experienced any discrimination or blatant racism for our peers or teachers, although the same cannot be said for some of our fellow black students. One of the things that stood out to us in our high school experience is that none of the teachers or administration looked like us. Representation within a classroom setting is important, especially when attending a predominantly white school. The only people that looked like us were coaches for the sports teams, Chris Williams and Alan Van Hook. We hope that in the future there will be more POC/black teachers that can be role models for students of color. It is inspiring to learn from someone you see yourself in. There is an ignorance and insensitivity within the social atmosphere among students when it comes to entitled behavior. Use of the N-word has been used inappropriately and casually by our white peers in the school environment. As for how to shift towards more respectful language, we are unsure of what the school can do to better this, but this is important to discuss because one of the biggest discomforts black students go through when it comes to peers. We recognize the efforts of the school when it comes to Black History Month, but in all honesty, its efforts are surface and unfulfilling. We would like to see prioritization and depth in educating about Black history. We would appreciate more than quotes spoken on the announcements from historical Black leaders. And to that point, last year, the historical Black leaders that were said over the announcements were actually repeated over and over, the same historical Black leader over the announcements. So that showed a lack of care in regard to what they could do for Black History Month. Calabasas has the resources to fund anti-bully and drunk driving assemblies. Why not do the same in educating and on race equity, especially during Black History Month? When we attended CHS, the Black Student Union was the only intentional supportive environment for POC/Black students. But the BSU was a student-run club. When we came to Calabasas, one of the programs that were very helpful in getting acquainted was Link Crew. We especially, since CHS has got more diverse lately, would like to see another program implemented that is similar to Link Crew. An idea we have is a luncheon for freshmen/transfer students of color, creating an atmosphere of support that connects students and families before the school year begins. In conclusion, we would like to thank you for allowing us to express our views on ways to make CHS students feel more comfortable in their learning environment and letting us as alumni be a part of this. We hope you will take our ideas into consideration. So there's someone else who'd like to talk, but before they speak, I'd like to say that in regard to how Calabasas conducts a lot of the other social programs, for example, like freshman seminar and the anti-bullying acts and the anti-drug acts, it's clear that CHS has the funds and the means to address things that directly affect their community. But in regard to Black students, our LGBTQ plus students, our people of color at the school, there is seemingly nothing, no resources, no funding, no implementations in the history programs to even make an effort to have these conversations about just the diversity in the school. So with that, Allie, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Sammy. I just want to say thank you so much for organizing such a safe space for everyone to share their truths and their stories. I know this is really difficult to talk about, especially like for some people. It's really difficult. It really is, and especially with what's been going on in the world right now, it's insane, honestly. Like Dylan Lee said, as a straight white female, I am so privileged in the Calabasas community, and I feel that until, like, for everyone to be happy and safe at school, like, it's no one feels like that. Especially me. I don't feel happy and I don't feel safe at school until everyone feels that way. It's the amount of slurs I've heard, the N-word, like transphobic slurs, homophobic slurs. It's crazy and it's not okay. And I'm so sorry for anyone that has been targeted and has had these slurs used against them. And I can't even fathom how that must feel. And also for the video that most of you know that was posted on TikTok. I know Layla made a response video to that. It physically hurt me because that kind of behavior coming from two privileged white girls from our school, it's appalling, it's disgusting, and it shouldn't have surfaced at all. They shouldn't have made that video, and even by making that video, they knew somehow it could have gotten out. And now they're paying the consequences for it. But I personally would like to say that the email that Ms. Foss sent, while they did deal with the issue, it was such a nonchalant email. It was so bland, and they really could have made a statement to make the Black kids at our school feel so much safer and so much, like, just so much safer in the community. And that was their golden opportunity to do so, but they didn't, and they just did such a bland email just saying, like, we are so sorry this has happened. Yeah, so are we, but are you going to do anything about it is the issue. And it's just crazy that that even happened, and I would just like to say I'm so sorry for anyone that has gone through this, and I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Emmy, next.
Hi. So I'm white and I'm not a member of the LGBT community. So I've never experienced something like what I'm hearing personally. And I'd just like to say that I'm so sorry that any of these experiences have happened to you guys. And I just think that it's horrible for me to hear, especially as a friend of a lot of people who are members of the LGBT community and, you know, as like an ally, a white ally. But I don't know if anyone touched on this, but I have experienced sexism at our school, which is another big issue, especially in the sports program, which I'm a member of the water polo team. And I personally have been harassed multiple times by walking up the steps to the pool and even by people on my own team. And I know that other members of my team have also experienced this. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've been next to my friends when they've been catcalled or called inappropriate terms and stuff. And like,
even working out, we've been stared at and stuff. But I've also experienced it within my program where my coach I've had multiple coaches that have been really inappropriate. I had a coach in the past who's now been fired, but it took way too much effort to get him fired, and it kind of caused a lot of drama. But last year, he would make inappropriate comments towards the girls. He would, one of my friends came out of the pool once, and he said, like, oh, make sure that you change before you go home. And she said, why? And he said, well, make sure that you don't get a yeast infection. And he would like laugh about that, and that was just a really weird comment. And I had another coach this year who, that was just one example, by the way. That coach from last year also during one of our games once was joking with this girl on my team who wasn't playing that game, and he grabbed her arm and just said like, hey, calm down, like you're being really aggressive, because she was trying to help coach our team. And he grabbed her arm and she pulled away from him and she said, don't you ever touch me like that again. And he just laughed it off. And there were a bunch of parents sitting behind her, by the way. My mom was there, she witnessed this. But this year I also had a coach who is unfortunately still one of our coaches, not the girls coach anymore, but the boys coach. I don't know if that was okay for me to say, but one of the things that he's done was when we were getting suits for our school, he fought with us a lot because he really wanted our suits to be these suits that are like, I don't know how to describe these other than saying butt flaps, but basically water polo suits are supposed to be really tight, and especially on the bottom, they're supposed to kind of go in like this because you have to be able to like swim and be comfortable in them when you're playing. And he wanted them to be like this, where it would like kind of cover your butt. And all of us were fighting with him because that's really uncomfortable, and that makes it easier for the other team to grab onto our suits and stuff. And he just fought with us a lot for these, and we ended up getting the suits that he wanted, despite him telling us that he wouldn't get them. So we had to play our entire season with these really uncomfortable suits that made us uncomfortable because, first of all, why would our coach even be thinking about that? Like, it's kind of inappropriate for him to be thinking that we even need to cover ourselves up like that. So we reported him, and I actually spoke to Mr. Friel about this, and he tried really hard to get me to talk negatively about my current coaches, the girls team, who I have a lot of respect for. He tried to get me to speak negatively about them because he's personally friends with the coach who I was complaining about, and he just basically fought with me and said, oh, he had no bad intentions and all this stuff. And it was really uncomfortable, and now I have to see that man on the pool deck all the time, and I don't like to make eye contact with him, and he makes us really uncomfortable. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmy. I have a couple of things that people have DM'd me because they couldn't make it, about different things they've experienced at school. One of which, these are going to remain anonymous. One girl said that a lot of Asian fueled things, especially with COVID-19, that's given a lot of people ammunition to say certain things about that. One student was called a corona-filled bitch, and they would cover their mouths whenever she would come around in class. Some of the students in said class, she didn't specify whether the teacher did this purposefully or not, but she would separate, when there was a group thing, she would separate the kids, and 9 times out of 10, all of the Asian kids in that class would be in one group, whereas the rest of the class would be in their own separated groups. There was another person who DM'd me saying that in 8th grade, I'm going to assume it was at AC Still, they played a game called Catch the Jew, where they'd pin down different people and ride their backs like mules. A lot of other instances of people being called the N-word, a lot of anti-black messages, and something that's been very overlooked at this school is the ableism, and the lack of representation for the people who have mental illnesses or physical ailments. And it's I feel like that's something that doesn't really get a lot of mention, because there's a lot of people afflicted with depression, for example, which is a oftentimes invisible illness where you cannot look at someone and say this person is depressed, and there are a lot of things that could be triggering to someone who has that invisible illness, and a lot of teachers will discount the things that they say as you're being too sensitive, it's not that big of a deal. As someone said earlier, when one teacher said, what were you Jews doing this summer? It comes down to, it is the students in a large majority of the time, but a lot of the teachers are very insensitive in what they say. And really, I truly believe that not a lot of the teachers have been properly trained to handle children. They don't know what to do in regard to the diverse set of each individual child, what mental problems they might have, that someone's race, someone's sexual orientation. And the biggest thing really is to teach teachers how to cater to the individual rather than the majority of the classroom. There are so many students in each class that need that hands-on education, and when you cater to the people who, which is usually the white majority, there are so many people who get left out in these situations. Next we have Sydney. Sydney, you can speak.
Oh, I don't know why I said Sydney, sorry, but that was me. My name's actually Abby, for those of you that don't know me, but as a student at Calabasas High School, I went through sorry Sammy, I didn't know that you didn't know it was me. I thought it said Abby's iPhone, my bad. But as someone who has gone through just a lot of just trauma as a person, I feel like the teachers have been just really bad, like in response to certain students. Like when I finally got a diagnosis for certain things, my teachers just totally started treating me a different way, and I felt like that they were talking to me as if I were dumber, and they would say things that were a little bit insulting and kind of make hints, and I just I didn't want other people to know. It was embarrassing, and I don't want to call out, I don't like calling out teachers, but Mr. Barrel made a comment to, when they were deciding things for Bear Rhythm, he made a comment to all the girls in the room that I was too awkward, socially and stuff like that for a group like that. And as someone who just I felt that it was just insensitive of him to even say that, because it was uncomfortable, because there are people that are going through different mental illnesses or depression or stuff like that. And when I once went to administration for help because I kind of felt lost and I lost motivation to do stuff, they told me that I couldn't get help because I wasn't failing. And sorry, it felt like the school needed to see me suffer in order to see that I wasn't happy, and a diagnosis wasn't enough for them, and I was just not happy. I have a lot of friends who also suffer from mental illnesses, and I constantly see them being picked on specifically by certain teachers like Mr. Barrel, who he makes people cry, and I know he picks on the people with ones with obvious mental illnesses, such as myself. He has singled me out before, and I don't appreciate it, and I don't want to talk bad because I do have respect for these teachers, but at the same time, I feel like teachers should be more sensitive when talking to teachers because to students, because when I came to Calabasas High School, like, I mean, I was like a 14-year-old girl, like I was a little girl and I was struggling with a lot of things, and I felt that, I don't know, that teachers just should be more careful. And like, you want to speak? I actually have a friend who's, yeah, but I'm kind of like dumb because like, I don't know, I really don't want to like say too much because this is like, I don't want to like cry or anything, but I have a friend who ended up going to Calabasas for her first year, and it was just like so bad that she had to leave and go to a boarding school. And then her name is Celine. She graduated what year?
Hi. Can they see me? Yeah. Oh, okay. I look like a clown, but because I am. Hi. Okay. Oh, hi, Layla. It's so good to see you. It's so good to see you. Anyways, hi. I went to Calabasas. I think, I don't know, I blocked most of it out. It was a super terrible time for me. I went there, I think, from 2013 through February 4th, 2015, and that's when I got sent to treatment. I'm not going to say Calabasas was the reason I got sent to a therapeutic boarding school. I got sent to that boarding school because I had my own like mental health issues to work with, but Calabasas on top of it was the reason why I was failing my classes, and the eventual reason why I had to move schools was because Calabasas was not able to support my mental illnesses, which to one extent they don't have to, support me on every single mental illness I have. I have so many, but at the same time, they could have better support for their kids who do have mental illnesses, as well as their students who are female who have mental illnesses. It's so ADHD and autism are like severely underdiagnosed in women. I didn't get diagnosed with ADHD, like severe ADHD, till I was like a sophomore at Calabasas. Calabasas was one of the worst times of my life. I had a lot of teachers who were absolutely terrible, rude, didn't care about my own mental health, especially when, I don't know if I should say this, but just had a lot of stuff going on at home. Don't want to say too much just in case it gets back to my family, but a lot of bad things happening at home, and I would try to talk to like the school and they wouldn't listen. I would, have these obvious like depressive episodes in class, and like the teachers just like didn't seem to care. Like as a teacher, I know you have 30 students, and at the same time, it's also your responsibility to pay attention to these things. I'm a camp counselor. Like we're expected to watch every kid, all of our 13 campers in our cabin, and make sure that they're eating and not going to the bathroom after each meal, making sure they're not throwing up. Like we have to keep like watching them all the time. If we can do that as counselors, like teachers can watch if their students are having signs of mental illness. And just one last thing. I don't remember her name, but she was a geometry teacher. She was high-key abusive to all of us, like verbally abusive. I think she got fired. I'm not sure though, because I got sent to treatment without internet for 2 years. So I have no idea. But she would make fun of us every single day. I would go to her being like, hey, I don't understand this, and she would just kind of like make fun of me when I was obviously being like, hey, I have ADHD, I'm undiagnosed, and I don't know how to cope with this. And she was like, well, figure it out, idiot. So that really messed me up for a while. I'm sorry, I'm really scattered. Calabasas high school is really triggering for me. I don't think about it. I don't speak about it. When I drive past it, I can't even look at it. I can't even pick up my brother from school. Yeah. I'm so scared of that school. It's overall not a great environment, not good for their LGBT kids like me, a lesbian, not inclusive, didn't allow me to grow into the beautiful rainbow I am today. I would not say that Calabasas contributed to any of my growth as an LGBT Jewish woman. So, anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling. Bye, Layla, and bye, everyone else.
Yeah, sorry. I know that was really long, but I just want to say, like, just one more thing. Just, I forgot what it was. Shoot. It was, I don't know. I just think that we just need to have more of a caring community. I don't think that school needs to be a place where we all like have to dread going. I think it should be a place for growth, like both not like academically and as people. And I think it shouldn't be geared towards like one type of person because we're all different, and I think we need to be more inclusive of that. Sorry, I'm like really nervous. I get really nervous, and I know like you guys are through the phone, but this is really scary. So like, thank you for like listening. Stop. I'm so sorry. This is stop.
Thank you, Abby. We have 2 more people who want to talk. If anyone else wants to say something after these 2 people, feel free to say something in the chat. But after these 2 people, that'll be it. So, yeah. First, we have Chloe, who wants to talk about mental health after what Abby said.
Yeah, so Abby made me think about my own experience with dealing with mental health issues while being an LVUSD student. And my experience with this starts before Calabasas when I was a student at AE Wright. I remember the counseling support at AE Wright was absolutely terrible. My mom and grandma, when I was in 8th grade, went to my counselor and said, you know, Chloe's having a really hard time with her mental health. I'm at home right now. So it would be great if, you know, you could talk to her because we can't get her in therapy right now. And I think I got called into the counseling office twice when they were supposed to be calling me in every week. And sorry for that. But I'd get called in, the counselor would say, how are you? I'd say, okay. And she'd go back to class. And that was it. That was my support system. And then never mind. Coming into Calabasas, there really is no support when it comes to teachers for students with mental health. When I was in 9th grade honors biology, my teacher one time yelled at me in front of the whole class, and then I started crying, and then the next day gives us a lecture on why we shouldn't have emotional responses in class. He never gave me any support when I showed that I was in emotional distress. He did not care. He only started being slightly nicer to me when my mom talked to my counselor. I also have a lot of friends who, besides me, who have had experiences at our school. And I can say I have Mr. Rivas as a counselor. He is amazing. But I have had many friends who have had experiences talking to their counselors and the administration about their mental health problems. And their 2 options were go to the emergency room or we'll call the police. And that should never be the response. Calling the police should never be a response for a student having a mental health crisis. That's absolutely appalling. And I also know a lot of students with mental health problems who have to fight to get a 504 plan that would allow them to have benefits when it comes to being able to talk to their counselors, getting support for their mental health. It is absolutely appalling that we as students have to fight for this when we don't control if we're born or develop a mental disorder. It's something we have to live with, and the school should be able to support us with that. And we don't get it. And I struggle all the time reaching out to teachers to say, hey, I'm struggling with my mental health. Can I get an extension on this project? And the answer is usually no. There isn't any really help unless you're in obvious physical pain. They don't care if it's an invisible illness like a mental health condition. And I think our teachers need to be better trained to deal with this. I think our school policies need to be updated so that students who need help can be given it. I know some people have great experiences with their counselors. I currently do, but especially in the middle schools, we need much better counseling. Is the fact that I was in distress in 8th grade and my counselor did nothing even when asked to is terrible. And I'm sure there have been other students that have had experiences like that. And for many of us, when we have a mental health condition, just getting through the day is hard enough. When you add the stress of school and extracurriculars on top of that, it's can be unbearable, and our teachers do not support us with that. I guess in conclusion, I think our teachers, staff, and administration needs to be more aware of the support they need to give students with mental illness. Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. And lastly, we have Jaden again talking about mental health awareness in CHS.
Thank you, Sammy, for allowing me the opportunity to speak again. I wanted to brush up on what Emmy and Chloe said with a few experiences of my own. I have been in this school district for 11 years, and I have to tell you that the kind of treatment that these faculty have put onto their students is nothing new. My earliest example, when I was in 3rd grade, I was not very good at math. I struggled in it. And one of the things that they have for me is I could leave class to go to another class that would be a lot more helping with my math, and it really did help me out a lot. But every time I asked my teacher to go, I was always met with guilt. I was always met with ridicule. And as a result, I failed at every math class that year. I failed at every math subject that year. And it was to the point where I had to switch out of that school and into a new one. And then in 6th grade, I go to AC Stell, and this brushes upon the sexual harassment that a lot of teachers put upon their students. My 6th grade PE teacher was a pervert and would spy on kids as they get dressed, and he would spy on girls. I've heard many stories from other, yes, Mr. Mena. I've heard many stories from a lot of my friends about how they were sexually harassed by him. And I think that it's awful. I think that it's awful that they're allowing this to continue, and he hasn't even been fired yet. And you know, in 8th grade, I don't think I've ever told anyone this. I was on a trip in DC, and one of the teachers smacked my butt. And I know it wasn't by accident, because if it was by accident, he would have said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jaden." And when I confronted about it, and I said, "What's up? What did you do that for?" He made me feel guilty for even asking. And that mind boggles me. That absolutely mind boggles me that he would even do something like that. That you would do something to a 14-year-old kid like that. And also in 8th grade, I said in the comments, I have a pre-existing medical condition, and I need a couple of adjustments for school as a result of that. And my 8th grade history teacher did not respect that in the slightest. And when I needed to leave the classroom to go to counseling or something like that, he's like, "No, you gotta stay here. You gotta stay here." I'm not one of those kids who would abuse leaving the classroom or anything like that, and he knew that. And I had to suffer in his classroom because of that, and it was just awful. And then I think the worst thing, and this is the most recent thing, in 10th grade, my brother passed away from a fentanyl overdose, and he lived in Arizona. And as a result, I had to fly to Arizona for his funeral and miss one day of school. Now, you would think from a glance oh, a student, his brother passed away. I think we should relax a little and forgive him about missing assignments. No. When I came back, it was one missing assignment after another and after another, after missing one day to grieve the loss of my brother. And I think that the school is so insincere and so mean about how they treat kids' well-being. And whether it be race, whether it be sex, whether it just be mental health problems in general, it's awful. And I really think that there needs to be a reboot in how they treat their kids, and I think there needs to be a little bit of decency at least to be established. And it's awful.
It's awful that I've had to experience this for years. It's awful that anyone has to experience this at all. And I just think it's a disgrace that they haven't handled it sooner. Thank you, Sammy, for letting me speak again. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for letting me share what was on my mind.
Jaden, thank you so much for sharing that. We have 3 more people who want to talk. Michael, Michael, Leah, and Sophia. So I'm gonna give the floor to Michael, then Sophia, then Leah, and then I'm gonna make a few closing points, and then that'll be it for this. So Michael.
All right. So basically, I just wanted to say how proud I am of everyone here and everyone that is an ally, because it really starts with us. You know, we're the next generation. We're the people that's going to be the next politicians, the next people that are going to be making laws in place, legislation. You know, we're the ones that are going to be parents one day, and we're going to have to educate our kids and bring them into a world where hopefully it's better than what we found it. And I think we have a huge responsibility to educate ourselves, educate people around us, and to stand up for others. Even if we're not in those groups, it doesn't matter. We're all humans. You know, we all have to stand up for each other. We all have to love each other. It doesn't mean you have to like everyone, but you know, when you see something, say something. And I'm very proud of everyone. I love you all, and I hope that we all find the strength to continue fighting and to continue making changes. I yield the rest.
Thank you, Michael. Sophia?
Yeah, same here. I just want to say thank you for all you guys for sharing your stories. I know how hard it could be, but it's really important if we're going to want change to speak out about this stuff, even if it is uncomfortable or scary. And I thank you again, Sammy, like so much for just creating such a safe space for all of us to come out and just say our stories. Going back a little bit to the mental health and teacher responses, I have divorced parents, and for anyone who can relate to me, it can be really hard. And I still continue to bounce back and forth from my mom and my dad's house. And that means I have to pack up my entire life every other day to, you know, go back and forth. And, you know, that includes school stuff too. So on multiple occasions, I've forgotten a textbook or a homework assignment, or forgot I had a test because I was, you know, stressed about my home life. And I've had teachers say, well, I'm sorry, like, that's not my fault. Or like, I'm sorry. I had one teacher one time, I was trying to get help for an upcoming test, and I had mentioned that I had forgotten one of my supplies, and because, you know, I had just moved houses. And he was like, well, I'm sorry, your family life is so unstable. And just like the way that he had said it to me made me feel so uncomfortable. And like, I'm already dealing with that myself, you know, and I don't need other people to come and wreck me about it. So and I've gone to my counselors multiple times when I'm stressed, and they just kind of sit there, and they don't help. They never, like I said in the chat, like the counselors are always saying, oh, you can always come to me for help. And then when we do, if it doesn't pertain to them or the school, it's not important. And I think it's really important that that changes, because like, I think it was Chloe who said, we have so much to tackle, and then we add school on top of that, and it just makes it even harder. And we need a safe space to talk at school too about all those kinds of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie, and thank you so much for helping me make this happen. I appreciate it. Leah?
Yeah, hi. Sorry I'm coming to this late. I got the wrong time initially, but I do want to say something to Sophia that counselors at Calabasas, it's really hard to get a counselor because we're constantly changing counselors. So you can't really connect to a counselor and be comfortable enough to speak to them, and they really don't make themselves available. And that's just something the school needs to improve on, and honestly get more counselors and just have a more stable cycle with that. And you should definitely make sure that you get 2 sets of textbooks for everything, because that's just something that my best friend, her parents got divorced, and she has 2 sets of textbooks, and it was hard to get, but like you can get it. But what I wanted to say just in general was I made a survey. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that for Calabasas High School, just like the prejudice on campus is like truly like disgusting. And like you hear slurs used constantly. And I left an open space for people to comment like specific experiences they've had anonymously, because like it's not easy for everyone to come up and actually talk on a Zoom. And the things that have happened and administration has not acted upon are just truly disgusting. Like girls have opened up about being sexually harassed and not having anyone do any action about it. Like they go to the principal will be like, oh well, we can switch you out of that class or something. Like I don't know, I think that you need to discipline students and make sure that they understand that that isn't okay. And if you guys really want to make change, I think you should organize a board. I know that my friend Phoenix organized a board to talk to administration, and administration just needs pressure applied upon them. And if you come out organized and have the full force of parents and like other staff members behind you, you can make change. I promise you that. You really just need to push on them, because I think that everyone opening up is definitely the first step. But I think that once you actually take action and like push administration, you'll see something done about it, because they can't just sit there and not do anything. It's just not okay. It's gone on for way too long. That's it.
Thank you. Just a few people want to speak, but to your point of us organizing, I am thinking about taking whoever wants to give permission, all these testimonials, and really pushing the administration, Exner, the new vice principal, everyone who's involved with making change next year, that this is happening with your students, and it's going beyond even the implicit racism that's happening. There's so much dismay happening at this school, and you need to, before you can make a decision, you need to know what's happening first. That is the first step. And once everyone gets their final points across, I'm going to put up a poll and ask everyone if they'd like to do something similar to this again on Wednesday, because I've been in contact with the administration and they're free Wednesday at around 1 to 2, and they'd like to sit in on these conversations. A couple of them have, but a lot of them were busy today, whatever. But they'd like to sit in on this conversation on Wednesday. So if any of you are open to that, I'm going to make a poll. So just for the final things, we have Caitlin and Sarah. So Caitlin, you have the floor right now.
Hi. I forgot about this thing, so I'm gonna share it now. I was at a comedy sports game a while ago, and they were doing that game where they give you like a radio genre, and then you have to pretend to be like a radio host for that genre. And this white girl got rap, and she was just really pushing like a black stereotype for like a rap radio station, and it was really like gross to see, because she could have made so many other jokes that were not racist, and like not gross for a white upper class white girl to do. And then afterwards I was kind of like talking to my friends, and I was like, that was really weird that happened, and like nobody's saying anything. Nobody in the audience when she was doing it, nobody said like don't do that. People were laughing the whole time, and there was like never any follow-up that I know where she got like punished or talked to for it. And it was just like a really weird situation where everybody just kind of sat there, and I was like, okay. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
I remember exactly what you're talking about. And really quick, can y'all please stop making the black jokes in comedy sports? It is not funny.
Man, that happened when I was there too. So many.
Mm, for everybody who's watching this and on YouTube, I know some of y'all know me from comedy sports and maybe are in it. Stop. It's not funny. I've never laughed at it once. So, anyway, Sarah, you're up next.
Hi. So, I'm a senior right now, and I've had multiple issues with like administration and like that area. For example, Sammy's in my homeroom, but in that homeroom specifically, like boys would come up to me and like grab my waist and make me feel like uncomfortable and make like remarks towards me that just like made me like uncomfortable, and I would say like I'm uncomfortable. So I would tell my teacher, like the person in charge, and they'd be like, suck it up, like deal with it. So every single week I would have to go to that homeroom, and it made me like very uncomfortable. And yeah. And the teachers, I'd bring it up, and then they would spark like a mental breakdown, and I would end up in Mr. Reva's office for like the entire day. And that's it.
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing that, because again, it goes deeper than what we think, and administration needs to realize that they need to hear the testimonials from their students before they can even make a decision to begin with. So, oh, and someone just brought to my attention that a girl in comedy sports uses a Jamaican accent. Not funny, guys, once again. Next we have Willow.
Hey guys, I'd just like to say before I start, just like hearing your stories was just incredibly eye-opening. Like, you know, you hear all this stuff around campus, but like hearing it from like my friends and hearing it from you guys who I've seen around campus, just like it's just really insane, you know? I'm a person who loves going to school, but I have felt unsafe sometimes. I've talked to my counselors about switching classes, and they're like, because of a teacher or because of students, and they're like, no, you can't do that. Like, that's not a valuable, like, that's not something that you can do. You can't like switch a class because of a teacher or specific students. So it's really difficult to speak out, and I know that it's hard for everyone. So I'd just like to say thank you everyone for being like incredibly brave, because you all are amazing, and just thank you for speaking out, and Sammy, thank you for organizing this, because it's really important. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm in ASB right now, and I didn't join ASB for the college apps. I didn't like do it for whatever. I joined because I actually like want to make a difference, and I interviewed and I got in, and like I want to try my best to make a difference. So this is just like I've personally DM'd some people, but if you guys just need an ally who's in student government, I'm here. Please reach out, because I understand what you guys are feeling, and I want to help you guys. So thank you for speaking out.
Thank you, Willow. And there's one more person who wants to talk, but hearing all these stories has really, even before, has really ignited a fire in me to really get something done in regard to this. So much so that if you were to, if you want to DM me some names, I might start beating some people up. I know I'm a little skinny, but my bones are very sharp, and I could start clawing and slashing at people. I promise you. I promise you. But I didn't say that. This is not live. Anyway, Maddie is the last person who'd like to speak, so the floor is yours.
Okay, hi, I'm Madeline. So this happened at AC Stel, but I think it's important to share because AC Stel is a part of LBUSD, and so I don't know, so I wore a scoliosis brace all of 7th grade. So being 12 is already hard enough, and so walking around school wearing a tight pink brace under my clothes every day was not the most fun experience, but you know, it wasn't horrible. But one day we had a fire drill and it was really hot outside, so my brace, like, it's kind of gross, but I just got all sweaty. So like I told my friend, like, I'm gonna be late to class, I'm gonna go to the nurse's office and take off my brace. And so I went to the nurse's office, I went to the bathroom, I locked the door, and I started to take off the brace, and I was changing, and then an 8th grade boy barges in, and he's like, what? Like, we're both just like, what's happening? And then he's like, I'm so sorry, and then he leaves and he like runs out. I don't blame the boy at all. Like, it was an accident. But I went outside and I saw the nurse was sitting by her computer, and I'm like, hey, did you see that guy barge in? And she said, yes, I did. And I'm like, okay, well, why didn't you tell him I was in the bathroom changing? I'm very, like, I feel humiliated right now. And she told me, well, maybe you should have locked the door better. You know, that door has a faulty lock, so I feel like this is on you. And I was, I don't know, I made a joke about it with my friend during lunch, and I continue to make jokes about it, but like, that was an unacceptable way to respond to that situation. I don't blame that kid at all for barging in. Like, it's fine, like, it's not his fault. But that nurse, I'm pretty sure she still works at AC Stell, but I was so disgusted that that's the way she handled the situation, and it's just, she shouldn't have made 12-year-old me feel like it was my fault for that situation. And I hope that, I don't know, I hope the administration learns that it's not the student's fault. Thank you.
All right, everyone. That was the last of people who wanted to speak. Just a message to whoever's watching on YouTube and to everyone who has some form of outreach. The stories are here, Calabasas, and the LVUSD school systems as a whole, because we heard different stories about the middle school and this school and things dating back to 3rd grade. Your students don't feel comfortable in these school systems. They don't. Transfers don't. People who've been in this community forever, they don't feel comfortable here. And you can make your blanket statements about how you're trying and it's tough for you guys and it's difficult to figure things out. We are right here telling you what to do. We're telling you the specific instances where we do not feel good at this school, whether it be sexual assault, racial slurs, homophobic statements. You cannot begin to tell me how shocked you are at this when I just conducted a meeting and so many people have conducted these Zoom meetings of people having a myriad of stories about this school and the students there and the teachers that are employed at your school. Tell me how shocked you are now. Tell me how shocked you are in an email. How these teachers are going to go on a racism summer camp retreat this year. Tell me how much that's going to help. So I'm going to be submitting a poll. If you guys want to do this again on Wednesday, and I was invited to another Zoom meeting on whatever date it is, next Friday, with a couple of other people who are going to hold another discussion about the racial and a myriad of other things. Another discussion Zoom, and we're going to take it to administration and really get the change that, quite frankly, we deserve. Fighting for the alumni that came. Some of the students were fighting for the 12, 13-year-olds who went to AC Stell and AE Wright who didn't have a voice, and were struggling to say and do things that they felt were right. Now is a good time as ever. As AJ said in that quote, if it's not me, then who? If it's not now, then when?
If not now, when? And if not you, who?
And it's going to be right now. Right now. So I thank you. I thank Dylan Lee for hosting this Zoom and hosting the live stream because my internet is terrible. I thank Sophia, Ali, who left, Dylan, Pernika, who also left, and Maddie, who helped me with the countdown, and everyone who wrote a transcript of some of the instances that were said. Some of them will be kept anonymous to ensure that people feel safe. And we're going to submit it to administration, tell them what's going on, and we're not going to stop with just this. I know there are more students out there who feel unheard and feel voiceless, and this is not it. This fight isn't going to stop. It's only going to stop until we see change. Thank you, everybody who came. I appreciate your bravery in sharing your stories and taking the time to listen and listen to everybody's plights and everybody's issues, because it goes beyond just our personal experiences. It's really, we are in this together. We are all in this together. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you so much, Sammy, for hosting us.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sammy, so much.
Thank you so much.